Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the 2019 Summer Food Service Program Kickoff Webinar. I'm excited that we have at least 24 folks on the webinar this afternoon. And if you could all please make sure that your microphones are muted. We can hear, if your microphones are not muted, we can hear paper shuffling, side conversations, things like that. So if you could please all make sure that your computer microphones are muted, that would be greatly appreciated. So with our webinar today, we're going to be reviewing some of the revisions to the 2019 Summer Food Service Program renewal process. And then we will end with a few resources and share with you information about training opportunities for the 2019 Summer Food Service Program. So let's go ahead and we will get started. So what is new for 2019? Well, the renewal instructions are posted on canny.org on the Summer Food Service Program Administration webpage. And one of the major changes that we made with the Summer Food Service Program is that we moved all the renewal documents to the checklist tab in CanClaim. So when you go to the renewal webpage, for the Summer Food Service Program, you'll see that this year it has shrunk drastically. And so we did that in order to align with the school nutrition programs and with CACFP, because that was a change that we made this past program year in 2019, is we pulled the renewal forms and put them all on the checklist tab as well. Something else that is a fairly significant change is that for non-school sponsors, you are being required to complete a program agreement, the 2019 Summer Food Service Program Agreement, and we do need 2 signed copies of that with original signatures submitted to Child Nutrition and Wellness. So please download those from the renewal webpage as quickly as possible and get those original copies submitted to Child Nutrition and Wellness as quickly as you can, because we will not be able to approve the renewal documents in CanClaim unless we have a signed program agreement. And for our school sponsors, you will be required to upload your 2018 School Nutrition Program Agreement to the checklist tab in CanClaim. And just as a heads up, we may be modifying or revising the program year 20 program agreement to update some of the summer language, but that has not been decided for sure. But school sponsors, upload your 2018 School Nutrition Program Agreement to the checklist tab. Non-school sponsors, please submit to Child Nutrition and Wellness 2 copies of the program agreement, and at least one of those versions has to have the original signature on it, not a photocopy. All right, so let's move into CanClaim, and we're going to briefly talk about some of the revisions to the sponsor application, site application, checklist, and budget. The good news is that we had very few revisions to any of these in CanClaim, so that is the good news, but there were a few. So let's go ahead, and this is the sponsor application, and we have a demo sponsor in CanClaim. And so let's just highlight just the few revisions to the sponsor application. One of the things that I want to highlight it's not a revision for program year 2019, but the address comments on line 5, if there are any specific instructions or any details that will assist our staff with finding the physical location of the sponsoring organization, please do feel free to put those comments in there. Or if you have a preference as far as mailing address, street address, or any specific details regarding that, that is also an appropriate place to put that. I also want to mention too that anytime that you do have a change to the sponsor application or site application or budget in CanClaim, please let your consultant know so that your consultant can get those changes approved as quickly as possible. So it's important to keep the authorized representative information updated on the sponsor application. And this is important because this is the person who receives all of the communications from Child Nutrition and Wellness. Below the authorized representative fields are the sponsor contact fields, and although this section is not required, it is strongly encouraged because the sponsor contact also receives the updates through the Summer Food Service Program listserv from us as well. And we know that summertime is really busy and folks may not be on site all the there's vacations, there's other commitments, and so having both a sponsor contact as well as the authorized representative contact information is very helpful for us to be able to get a hold of you if needed be. Of course, nothing has changed with the claim contact. The training information section has not changed. Just as a reminder, as far as the training goes, you'll, as always, have to upload the training certification form to the checklist tab. This is really important because Child Nutrition and Wellness will not process your first month's claim for reimbursement until that has been uploaded. Also, too, that the training for your site staff, at least one training does have to occur before the first day of meal service. And then if you want to stagger additional trainings as additional sites open up, that is fine to do. But please note that you do need to provide the staff training prior to meal service for any of your meal service sites, regardless of when they start. The general information, of course, making sure that your sponsoring organization type is appropriate. The sponsor operating dates, this is important because we do check this against your site application. We are frequently asked to report to USDA beginning and end dates of our sponsors. And a lot of times they are very interested to know how early our sponsoring organizations operate here in Kansas. So that information is important for two reasons. It's included there as an edit check against the site application, and then we oftentimes will query this information and we send updates to USDA as far as the beginning and ending dates for our organizations. Oftentimes we do get questions about fields number 38 and 39 and what should you put in there, how should you describe the sponsor's efforts to assure that minority populations have equal opportunity to participate. We do have some examples here, and obviously not all of these examples will apply to everyone, but it can be something as simple as program material are available in Spanish, and all staff and volunteers will receive civil rights training. And then describing the methods used to inform minority and community organizations about the opportunity to participate in the Summer Food Service Program. So please tell us all your efforts that you are doing to inform minority and community organizations about the Summer Food Service Program in your community. If we scroll down a little bit further to the meal purchasing information, field number 41, you will indicate whether or not you purchase meal services from a vendor, and that could be from a school district. It could be from a what we call a food service management company. no matter how big or how small that food service management company is, you will have an agreement or by use of the vended meals contract, and so you will need to indicate who you are purchasing those meals from. We do have the option to include a second contract, because we know that we've got several organizations that operate across multiple counties, and so frequently it is required that they have multiple food service contracts. And so the sponsor application, we do our best to capture this information. If you indicate yes in line 41, then it will be required on the checklist tab to upload a copy of the vended meals agreement or the agreement for the meal services that you have purchased. We'll move on to adult meals, and of course you'll indicate whether yes or no meals will be served to adults. One of the things that I wanted to mention here with adult meals is that even if you are not selling meals and collecting money on site, if you have received donations or a grant to provide adult meals free of charge to the adults, you're still going to need to put in a price here, whether it be for lunch, breakfast, snack, or supper. Okay, and the reason being is because adult meals that are not program adults, so adults that don't work in the summer food service operation, those meals are not allowable cost to the summer food service program fund. So you still will need to indicate a dollar amount in here and keep track of those adult meals. And then also too, one of the things that I want to mention, because we frequently do get asked questions about this, is how do you price the non-program adult meals that are selling or that you have received grant or donations for? And the pricing has to cover all your costs, so the cost of labor and the food cost and anything involved with preparing the meal. So, and we talk a little bit more about this in the summer food service administrative trainings that are coming up here at the start of April. But I do want to mention that even though if you are providing meals at a meal service site, you need to have a dollar amount indicated for whichever meal you are providing to adults. Now, if you are not making any adult meals available, then you can of course answer no. All right, advance payments. We do have some of our sponsors that do request advance payments, and if you would like an advance payment, you need to, of course, mark yes and then indicate which month and then for what you are asking for an advance payment for, whether it be for operating advance, administrative advance, or both of those. And it's important too for the advance payment to let your consultant know if it's getting close to, it's getting close to June and your application is not in approved status. Go ahead and send your consultant an email, and please feel free to CC me that, hey, we're requesting an advance. Because then I visit with our fiscal services office, and we run a list of all the sponsors that have requested advance payments, and then we make sure that we get those processed. But also though too, knowing you have to be in approved status as well, but we like to have a heads up on that so we can begin working on it. Audit compliance, one of the changes that were new this year, we had field number 70. So it's the date of the external audit and the date submitted to the clearinghouse. So if KSDE does not conduct your financial audit and you have an outside CPA firm doing that, then you'll need to indicate the date and then the date that it was submitted to the clearinghouse. And then if we did not, if we, KSDE, did not conduct your audit, then in field number 73, of course, you will be marking yes, and then you can upload a copy of the audit to the checklist tab under the miscellaneous uploads. And then last but not least, we have just a place for you to provide just general comments about the summer food service operation within your organization. So that's the sponsor application. Let's move on to the site application, and hopefully I haven't been timed out. All right, that's a good sign. So let's pull up the site application, and we do have a few changes here, and then of course some things that I do want to highlight. So one of the things that I want to start off first by saying is that you'll notice on the site application, you of course have the mailing address and the street address. The street address is so important for your meal service site, and it's important for a lot of reasons. Primarily, you want to give the right address so that participants know how to find the meal service site. And so in order to do that, it needs to be accurate. But also, though, too, we would ask that you verify the address with Google Maps in order to make sure your site services are available on the USDA National Clearinghouse. So basically what happens is every single week we submit a report to USDA of all of our sites, and those sites, of course, it includes the address. And then USDA puts them into their database, and they basically have a meal site finder. And so families can either send a text to a text number and find a meal service site near them, or they can go to the USDA website and find meal service sites. So this is so important to make sure that you get the street address as accurate as possible. And then if there's anything unique about the street address, or maybe the entrance to the meal service facility, on here we have meal service areas on the west side of the building, that would be a good comment to put here, because this will show up on the locate a site near you on the caneat.org Summer Food Service Program webpage. So there are lots of venues that KSDE and USDA are using to get the word out about meal service site locations. We've got our site manager information, that nothing has changed there. Then as far as the site qualifications, one of the changes that we do have is number 12, is this an unaffiliated site? We have added this question. And if it is an unaffiliated site, so basically what this means is if your organization is not staffing this meal service site, then you will mark that yes, it's an unaffiliated site, and then you will need to upload the unaffiliated site agreement to the checklist tab. And the unaffiliated site agreement basically it basically is an attestation that the site supervisor understands what the requirements are, and understands that if they're not completing daily meal counts and serving the reimbursable meals and doing things the way they were trained, that they could jeopardize their ability to serve meals at that location. The sponsoring organization also signs this form because they are attesting that, hey, we understand that we are the ones that are ultimately responsible for this meal service site. So it's kind of twofold. It's basically bringing everyone on the same page and making sure everyone understands what each responsible party's responsibilities are. Underneath that is this site a restricted open site? We do have a few restricted open sites here in Kansas. Not a whole lot, but basically, if you mark yes to this, your site is still going to show up on the locate a site near you on the caneat.org webpage, and it's going to still, your information is still going to show up on all the USDA resources. But basically what this means is for some reason this site has limited capacity to serve children, and it might be for the physical capacity of the building. Maybe there's not enough space, or for safety or security reasons. So if you have a question whether or not your meal service site really is a restricted open site, give your consultant a call or give me a call, and we can help you determine whether or not this really is a restricted open site. Your site information is still going to show up on the locate a site near you, but you do also have to make it known to households that you are a restricted open site, and that meals are available on a first come, first served basis. Okay, so moving on, you're next going to indicate whether or not the site, of course, is an open site, and then how it qualifies to be an open site, whether you're using school or school boundary data. That's basically the free and reduced price data from a school, or if you move down to number 17, it's an open site using census data. I really like the USDA area eligibility map, and that's kind of my go-to tool for this. But if you are using census data, then you will indicate in line 18 the GeoID. And so if you have questions about this, or if you're trying to get a site qualified, maybe your site doesn't qualify using school data, but it qualifies using census data. It doesn't matter as long as we get the site qualified. So if you're having some troubles with accessing the census data and finding the GeoID, just give us a call and we can help you. Something else too that is an additional option that helps increase the chances of being able to qualify a site as an open site is the ability to use census averaging. And so basically what this means is you can take up to 3 census block groups and you can put the numbers into this table, and as long as your census block group data averages out to at least 50%, then that site qualifies. So what that actually looks like is, let's just say you've got a meal service site on the south side of a street, and it's in one census block group, but on the north end, and it doesn't qualify, but on the north side of the street is a different census block group, and it's, say, 70% free and reduced. You can take that census data and average them out, and as long as the average is 50%, then the site does qualify. Now, I do want to point out, though, that the census block group minimum has to be at least 30%. So if you have a site that's in a census block group that is only 30% free and reduced, that's okay, but it just has to be at least 30. Now, if it's 24.5%, then you can't use the averaging option. But if you have questions about this, please let us know. We're happy to visit with you. Give me a call, because I do work a lot with sponsors on the census averaging. And we will do our best to try to help get a site qualified or remain qualified to participate in the summer food service program. There's other options for qualifying sites to be open, and that's by community eligibility, sites that primarily serve migrant children, and then other open site qualifications. And this is generally, to my knowledge, we've not ever approved a site using other site qualifications, but there might be, this would basically be local level data. Sometimes communities get grants and they have collected their own economic data for the community, and that might be an option. And then one of the things I want to point out that is new this year is in Field 27. We've always had the date of documentation, but it has been a year. Now we are requiring the month, the day, and the year in this field on line 27. Then we move down to other qualifications. So if your site doesn't qualify as an open site, there are still more other options to qualify to participate in the summer food service program: enrolled sites, residential camps, non-residential camps, and national youth sports program. We have very few residential, non-residential, and national youth sports programs here in Kansas, and that's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing, because that means that the majority of our sites here in Kansas qualify to be open sites. Enrolled sites, as long as at least 50% of the children attending the enrolled site qualify for free or reduced price meals, then all of the children are able to receive the meal for free, and the sponsor is able to receive reimbursement for all of those children. We do have some situations where a sponsor is operating a site and they think they might be able to meet that 50% threshold, but it turns out that they can't. And so basically what you need to know here is it can be a little risky if you are operating an enrolled site, because if you don't meet that 50% threshold for kids that qualify for free or reduced price meals, then you will only be able to claim the meals for the children that do qualify for free or reduced meals, and then all those children that would normally have qualified for paid meals, you don't get to claim them for reimbursement. So it happens every once in a while. But we do our best to be proactive and try to help prevent that from happening. Number of operating days, nothing has changed there. This is going to be where you're going to indicate the number of operates each month. This also does talk to the claim, the monthly claim, the site claim, and an edit check is done. So we make sure that if you say that you're only operating one day in say June, that on the site claim you're not able to claim more than one day. Days of operation, you're going to indicate what days of the week you're serving meals. Now we know that summer can be a little crazy, and it can also be challenging to get good participation. But in this box, this is going to be where you're going to indicate any schedule variations. So a lot of times the week of July 4th is just not a high participation week, and we do have a lot of sponsors that don't serve meals that week, or don't serve meals on July 4th and July 5th, or maybe July 3rd through 5th. This is where you're going to indicate that that schedule variation. And this does on the locate a site near you, that's on the CANI webpage. This information does show up there, so that when any family, any household goes to the locate a site near you webpage, all this information is going to show up there. So the schedule variations, and then we move down here to the meal service, all the meal service times for breakfast, and then the schedule variations, and then the service dates to the far right of fields 40 through 44. Now, one of the things that I do want to mention here is, I know some of you are aware that, oops, let me back up just a second. I do want to point out something. When I was talking about the enrolled sites, many of you are aware of the recension, the USDA policy memo recension that occurred, I believe it was maybe around, oh gosh, was it October or so? And basically what happened is USDA rescinded the state agencies' abilities to grant flexibilities for certain elements of the summer food service program. And Kansas applied for a waiver for 4 elements of the summer food service program. And the first one was that we applied for a waiver to be able to allow sponsors to use area eligibility to qualify an enrolled site. So what this means is, let's just say you're operating an enrolled site. So, but in lieu of collecting free and reduced price applications or obtaining free and reduced price data, if that enrolled site was in a census block group that qualified, or if it was within a school boundary that qualified as an open site, you could then operate this site. Then was eligible to operate. It's an enrolled site, but it's using area eligibility data to qualify, if that makes any sense. So if you have any questions about what that really means, like I always say, give your consultant or give me or Laura Hodgson a call, and we're happy to talk you through this. And one of the things that I do want to mention is that Laura Hodgson is going to be helping us with the summer food service program, and several of you already probably know her because she's been with our team for I think about 15 or 16 years, and Laura has primarily worked with the child and adult care food program, but she's going to be helping with the summer food service program and primarily working with new sponsors, but she is also available in our office to assist with answering questions and answering emails and things like that. So I know Laura is on the webinar, but please do feel free to reach out to Laura as well as myself or your consultant. And then we also are going to be bringing in the child and adult care food consultants to be assist with conducting summer food service program reviews and helping with program renewal approval. So the CACFP consultants will be reaching out to their sponsors here shortly and introducing themselves, so that you know who you can be reaching out to with questions about program renewal. So anyway, I should have mentioned that first off in the webinar, and I apologize for not doing that. But let's move back down to this meal service table that we have. So where I was headed with this is we were granted a waiver to be able to allow sponsors to use area eligibility data to qualify an enrolled site to participate. We were also granted 3 additional waivers. 2 of those waivers are regarding meal service times and length. And so and you'll notice on the table that there's a beginning time and an end time. And it has been in regulation that, for instance, breakfast shall not last longer than an hour. But we were granted a waiver to allow sponsors to operate breakfast meal service for longer than an hour. So several of you have, breakfast meal service times that run for 2 hours. And so the good news is, what I'm trying to say here is that there's no additional paperwork that is required on your behalf. You are officially applying for requesting a waiver for this flexibility by completing this beginning and end time if say your breakfast meal service time lasts more than an hour, or if you want to serve lunch longer than 2 hours. We know that, again, summer can just be a challenge as far as finding the right meal service time, and some of you operate sites that are in schools that are associated with summer school, but then daycares come over to the school, and so there is truly a need for meal service times that last longer than 2 hours for lunch, or an hour for breakfast and an hour for a snack. So one of the things that's super important to keep in mind here is that the beginning and end times are so important to keep updated on your site application, because any meal that is served outside of the approved meal service time on your site application, those meals will be disallowed. So it's very important to keep this updated. Let your consultant know as soon as you make changes to the site application, and then constantly communicate with your site staff and make sure that they are aware of what the approved meal service times are. And if kids aren't coming during those times and then they need to move the times back, make sure they have a conversation with you, and if there is the need to change those meal service times, it gets done on the site application, because we really do not want to disallow meals, but we do have to if any meals are served outside of that approved time on your site application. So that is so important. Also, too, it's important to try to estimate as accurately as possible the ADA, the average daily attendance. We know that sometimes with new sites, you don't really know how many kids are going to be popping up. And so, you might say that there's going to be 50 kids, but once the meal service site opens up and gets going, it might be 75 to 100. So make sure you let your consultant know if that needs to be updated. Also, too, self-preparation or vended, indicating whether you prepare the meals yourself or whether you're buying them from an entity. It's really important because this impacts your reimbursement rates. There's higher reimbursement for sponsors who prepare their own meals. And then again, those service dates here, that's important too, because those that information feeds into the locate a site near you. We moved down to the menu planning options, and you'll indicate what meal pattern you're using for each of those meals. And then we've got our activities at the site that you're going to indicate, and it's fine to indicate there are no organized activities. That's not a requirement to participate in the summer food service program. And then we move down to the general information, and then the 2 things that I want to talk about are lines 54 and 55, and if this is an outside site, arrangements have been made for food service during inclement weather. If that is the case, then you need to indicate if you have made arrangements for inclement weather, whatever they are, you need to indicate those right here in field number 55. And then also something that's very important is line 56. So if you've got an outdoor site, the site will operate as a non-congregate site on days when the area is experiencing excessive heat. So if you were to mark no here, then this site you could mark yes here. But if you are marking yes, you would not be able to mark no for 56. Because if you're marking yes here that you've got arrangements made, that means you are not going to need that waiver for excessive heat. And again, if you have questions about that, just let us know. Also, too, this was the fourth waiver that we applied for. And again, it's no additional paperwork for sponsors. It's a simple mark the box, yes or no. So line number 61, sponsor is requesting the discretion to waive first week site visit requirements for this site. And you can do this for any site that's successfully operated in the previous year. So you can't ask to waive the requirement for new sites or for sites that had operating difficulties in the previous year. Okay, but if you had a site, a returning successful site, you can mark this box yes to request a waiver to not have to do the first week site visit, because we know that many of you operate sites that are very geographically you cover a large geographic area, I guess is what I'm trying to say, or many of you also operate many sites that make it very difficult to get to all of those sites within the first week with the amount of staff that you have available. So that's going to be really important. If you do not mark this, but if you do not mark yes and are not approved for a waiver, and then you don't do the first week visit, then that is okay. But if you mark no and you don't do it, then that will be a finding when we come and conduct the sponsor review. So really important to mark yes if you are wanting to waive that first week site visit requirement. Then we go into the health inspection information. Nothing has changed here. Racial ethnic data, nothing has changed there, but I do want to point out that for race, so for Indian, Asian, Black, and the reason being is because you could have a child that was part Asian and Native Hawaiian. However, when you move over here to ethnicity, these two numbers, Hispanic or Latino and not Hispanic or Latino, have to add up to 100. Okay? And then you'll, of course, indicate your data source and the year of the information. And then there's a place for you, as you all know, to provide any general comments about the meal services at the site. Okay, so once you've got all your site applications added, then you can move on to the checklist tab, and then and so let's go to the checklist tab here, and you will see one of the things that's important to note is if there is a red box with a check mark in it, those are required. You will not even be able to submit for approval unless you have the application, the sponsor application, sponsor budget, and site application complete, and then any of these required forms. They're required, they have to be uploaded. You won't even be able to submit for approval. So remember back to that site application, we had the field entered in that the sponsor was purchasing meal services for that site. And you'll see by this vended meals contract, there's a box with a check mark in it. That is you're going to be required to upload the contract for the meal services. So also too on the procurement plan and the standard of conduct here, if you're a school sponsor or a CACFP sponsor, this is not required to be uploaded. It is required if you are a non-school or a non-CACFP sponsor. Site qualification documents, if you are using census data, then this is going to be where you're going to upload a screenshot of the census data. The program agreement, as I mentioned, this is required for all non-school sponsors this year. So you're going to download from the renewal web page the program agreement. You're going to sign 2 program agreements and mail the originals to our office. And then once we get those approved, we will get those uploaded for you. So again, you'll want to get those done as quickly as possible so that we can get those uploaded so that the approval of your application packet is not delayed. Then we have all the additional offline forms. Again, this is where we pulled all those documents off the renewal webpage and we put them here. So anything that you're going to need for program renewal is on the checklist tab. The letter to health department training certificate. If you, we do have maybe 1, possibly 2 sponsoring organizations that actually use child nutrition program benefit applications. And so if you are one of those sponsors, you're going to need to upload the letter to household and the application packet there, but that only impacts just 1 or 2 of our sponsors across the whole state. The income eligibility guidelines are there for a resource for you, so are the guidelines for determining eligibility. We've already talked about the vended meals contract, and then we move on to the summer food service program menus and production records. These are not required to be uploaded prior to the approval of the application packet. However, we do strongly recommend that you get those to us as quickly as possible so that your consultant can take a look at the menus and production records and just make sure that everything looks all right. And then one of the things that I want to mention too is we haven't, I don't think, talked a whole lot about this in the past, but the verification efforts to obtain school meals or use school food service facilities. Sponsors, non-school sponsors are strongly encouraged and to the maximum extent possible to use, to purchase meals from a school organization. And so we do require this verification effort form to be completed. So if you are a non-school sponsor and you are buying your meals from an organization that is not a school, you will complete that form and you will upload it to the checklist tab. We also have the waiver for unitized meals and that unaffiliated site agreement that we talked about. And then we've got the additional site qualification documents. So this would be for, you would upload here maybe site qualifications for a site that you've added after you were initially approved. So your application packet is approved on May 28th, and then June 5th, someone approaches you and says, hey, we'd like to serve meals at our church. Can we be a site underneath your sponsoring organization? And you say yes. Well, then we'll need to open up a new site application, but then you're also going to need to upload that additional site qualifications here as well. And then there's that line number 18 for just miscellaneous uploads as well. And let's see, I did have a note here about the miscellaneous uploads. We'll come back to that. Okay, so then we've got our budget, and on here we will just add it, and the budget cannot be added until you have all of your sites added. The site applications don't have to be completed. You just need to have them opened up and by clicking on the plus button. And so there were not changes to the budget per se, but we are going to talk a lot about completing the budget in the administrative trainings, the face-to-face and the webinars. This is really important. And the only thing that I want to say here is please make sure that if you have any changes to your budget, that you are going in and you are making sure you are updating that budget as those changes occur, okay? And again, we're going to talk about this during the Summer Food Service Administrative Training, and we'll be able to delve into this a little bit more deeper. Okay, so those are the highlights of CAN claim. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to go back to our slide deck, and we're going to move this over here. So just some reminders, all sponsors do have to complete the budget for 2019. This was a change last year. So whether you're a school sponsor or a non-school sponsor, you do have to complete that budget, and please make sure that you're making revisions as needed. One of the things that I do want to point out is that if Child Nutrition and Wellness is conducting a review within your organization, and when we're reviewing receipts, Let's just say we find a receipt for rent. So you've been paying for rent for a facility. If that rent is not indicated on your budget, it then becomes an unallowable cost to the summer food service program. So that's why it's really important to get that budget completed and as accurate as possible and updated as you need to. Then of course you're going to upload those documents to the checklist tab that we talked about in CanClaim. And then one of the changes that we made, I believe, last year is that vended meals contract is used for all meal service purchases. So whether you're purchasing your meals from a school organization or whether you're purchasing meal services from a food service management company, that vended meals prototype contract is used. Don't forget that your authorized rep has full responsibility for the login credentials, and do not share the username and password. One of the beautiful things about our new CanClaim system when it rolled out a few years ago is that multiple people can have access to CanClaim. The authorized representative can grant designated user access to additional people, and the authorized representative can say, you know, that Sally Jones, she will have access to being able to file claims. So the authorized representative can designate access to specific people and then specific tasks associated with the functions of CanClaim. And then we've also got the very user-friendly forgot your password underneath the login button on the registration page. And so don't forget, new authorized representatives, you do have to register to access CanClaim. Just so important, keep the sponsor application, site applications, and budgets updated. We do have a quick reference for accessing CanClaim available on the quick reference tab in CanClaim. We also have one for completing program renewal as well, and it's been updated to reflect all the field changes. Let's move on and let's talk about training opportunities. So we will continue to offer regional trainings, face-to-face regional trainings, and those trainings begin the first week in April. And you can go to the www.kn-eat.org Summer Food Service Program Training webpage to download the training schedule. We will be doing a renewal webinar on May 1st at 2 o'clock, and the link is there. But the link is also available on the training resource that you can download. And then we will also provide the Summer Food Service Administrative Training online again this year. Last year was the first time that we did that, and it was a smashing success. We will make that administrative training available either by webinar, by face-to-face, or online through our KSDE training portal. Next, I want to put in a plug for some of the webinars that we have coming up next week. We're going to be kicking off our best practice webinars. And if you'll notice, the theme on the slides was a space theme, and we are blasting off with the Summer Food Service Program. And so you will see that theme integrated throughout our trainings. But the inspiration for the space theme or for blasting off comes actually from two different sources. Many of you are aware of the KSDE, the redesign, and that we have a space theme associated with that. But also, though, this summer 2019, National Summer Learning Day is actually now a whole week. And we've always tried to promote National Summer Learning Day and highlight what sponsors are doing and provide resources. But it's a whole week. And then the reading theme, or the theme for the libraries, is also a space theme. So that's why we decided to integrate or incorporate a space theme of blasting off into Summer Food Service Program for 2019. So we've got these webinars. We've got best practice webinar on building partnerships and financial management. You're going to hear best practices from the field, and then you're going to hear some program guidance from our consultants too, woven into these webinars. So April 11th on programming and record keeping. April 23rd, incorporating local foods in the Summer Food Service Program. This is a new topic for us. We're very excited about it. Barb Depew is going to share more with you about Farm Fresh Fridays, and we're going to talk about meal pattern requirements and meal quality in this webinar. And of course, you'll hear from some best practices from our sponsoring organizations. And then we wrap it up on May 9th with a webinar conducted by Kansas Department of Ag. And it's what to expect when you're inspected. And so we're really excited that they're joining us again. And then Cindy Johnson, our training director, is also going to be on that webinar as well. So just some miscellaneous resources here. Don't forget, you can go to the Summer Food Service Program webpage to find all the administrative forms, civil rights forms, meal service forms. You click on the administration and then all those forms, the drop-down menu, you'll see that, and you can select the topic of forms you're looking for. We also then at face-to-face trainings, we're going to be providing door hangers. At the face-to-face trainings, and literally we have thousands of door hangers to provide to sponsors, and they're on a type of paper where they're sturdy enough. It's a cardstock paper, and so the front has I think it's eat up and meet up, and then on the back of the door hanger you can write the meal service address and the times. So we're hoping that you will find the door hangers a very valuable resource. We're really excited to be able to provide those to you because we've heard at many conferences that many organizations find door hangers to be a very effective method for reaching households and getting the word out about the Summer Food Service Program. We'll make yard signs available at the face-to-face trainings, as well as banners, and then food safety kits from the Institute of Child Nutrition. Our non-school sponsors get priority on the food safety kits, but if you would like if you are a school sponsor and you operate a site, an unaffiliated site, we'd be happy to give you those kits too. We're happy to give them to anyone, but it's kind of on a first come, first served basis because we do have limited quantities, and priority does go to our non-school sponsors. Then also too, we have to mention the USDA program guidance, because this is a great resource. This is the web page to the handbooks, the administrative guidance for sponsor, state agency, monitoring guide, sponsor monitors guide, nutrition guidance for sponsors, and then the site supervisor's guide. These are excellent resources. Those of you who have been around for a while and are familiar with the Summer Food Service Program, and 10, 15 years ago, we used to provide you hard copies of a lot of guidance documents, and at one point we even provided you with a binder. If you were a new sponsor, we actually printed these documents off and provided them to you. We no longer do that because they're available on the USDA website to be downloaded, and you can print at your convenience. I personally keep a electronic copy on my computer desktop of the administrative guidance for sponsors. I am constantly referring to that. So even though it's a guidance document geared for sponsors, we do refer to that a lot here at Child Nutrition and Wellness. It is a great resource. It is your must-have resource if you're a sponsoring organization. And then the site supervisor's guide is also very helpful too, and it's available in English and Spanish. We've got the one-page resources. These were new last year. We'll continue to talk about these in the administrative training and promote these. These are great for training your site staff. So we were tickled that Team Nutrition has available Summer Food Service Program resources. You can go online and at this website you can download a single copy, or you can go to this website and you can bulk quantities of resources. You can contact our Kansas Team Nutrition folks, and Emily Brinkman is very familiar with our Summer Food Service Program resources, and I have her contact information here. But we've got the Summer Food, Summer Moves Operators Activity Guide that has a lot of really great games and educational activities that you can do at your sites. I believe 2 years ago we provided these to all of our sponsors. We do have a few left, but you can order these. This is just kind of a picture of what all is included in that kit. It's a really cool kit. I really like the placemats. I think those are pretty neat. Then there's other information for families that you can hand out at your meal service sites, or if you're having a kickoff event. Those are some great resources. We've got some team nutrition gardening resources that are also have a lot of great activities in them as well. Here is Emily Brinkman's contact information, so please feel free to reach out to her if you want more information on team nutrition resources. And then we certainly want to mention Kansas Appleseed. They have been a vital component of the growth that we've seen here in Kansas and do a phenomenal job of getting into communities and starting conversations in communities about the summer food service program and helping communities expand the summer food service program. So we are very appreciative of all the hard work that Kansas Appleseed does. They can provide technical assistance and tools for success. They can help you in community meetings, spark collaborations within the community. They provide a monthly newsletter, and they can just help you. They've done a nice job of traveling throughout Kansas and have been to a lot of the summer food service sites and can also share best practices as well as any of our child nutrition consultants. So here's the website for Kansas Appleseed, and then there's how you can find them on Facebook and Twitter. So that is what we have for you today. I would like to thank you for joining us for this webinar. I do want to mention I had planned on going over the renewal instructions, but kind of ran out of time on that. But I'm sure that you all are aware that on the canny.org webpage, on the renewal webpage, there is the renewal instructions resource available, and it will talk you through some of the changes. It gives you important reminders that we just talked about here when we were in the sponsor and site application. And then it also explains some of the forms that we very briefly talked about and what forms are required and what the forms are and why they're required. So definitely make sure you pull down the renewal instructions, Summer Food Service Program renewal webpage, and use that as a guide. And as always, if you have questions about anything, please do not hesitate to reach out to your consultant, to myself, to Laura Hodgson, and any of the CACFP consultants that will now be conducting and working with our Summer Food Service Program sponsors. So again, thank you all for joining us today. We're super excited about the 2019 Summer Food Service Program, and we know that great things will be happening again. We have set a goal again to try to serve 1.5 million meals. A lot of opportunity for growth in Kansas, but I do thank you all for joining us today, and thank you all for the hard work that you've done in order to get to this point. And I know, and thank you in advance of all the great hard work that you're going to be doing in summer 2019. So thank you so much for joining us, and like I said, please let us know if you have any questions. We're always happy to help. On this slide is my contact information, so if your consultant is not in, always please feel free to reach out to myself or to Laura. Laura's email is lhodgson@ksde.org, or you can call our Topeka office at 785-296-2276, and anyone on our team will be happy to assist. So thank you all so much, and have an awesome 2019 Summer Food Service Program, and I hope that you'll join us next week and the weeks after for our best practice webinars, and we're looking forward to seeing you at the face-to-face trainings or one of the renewal webinars. Thanks, everybody.